Everybody, we're going to pick up from Daf Kuf Chav Gimel Amid Beis, the bottom of the Daf. And Yetz Hashem, we're going to try to get all the way till Kuf Lamed Aleph on top of the Daf. Zok the Gemara, Heniach lehen avian para muchkeres umuskeres biyad acherim. We learned last week, we had a brisa that says, if someone left to their children a para that's either leased or rented biyad acherim, or you have an animal that's in the wetlands and it gave birth, the halacha is bechar naitol ba pishnayim. That the bechar has a schus to get double, even though it's not considered, when the chiddush over here is going to tell us that it's not considered right. Hashta, frekta gemara, hashta muchkeres umuskeres. De lav bershusei demara didu kayama. Even though in the case where it's in the wetlands, and not in the wetlands, where we're saying that it's leased or rented, it's not in the reshus of the owner, Amarta Shakul, the halacha is that he gets Raya Va'afar Mivaya, and then why in the world do you need to tell us even when it's in the wetlands? On that, the Gemara answers are Kamash Milan, the Muchkeres, Muskeres, Dumya de Raya Ba'afar. Ma Raya Ba'afar, just like when this animal's in the wetlands, Shvacha, de Memela, Ka'asi, it's going on its own. Dahainu, it's going to get its own mezainais. Veloika Chasri Ba Mezaina, you don't need to feed it. Af muchkeres umuskeres one kuf chav daled amanale shvacha de memela kaasi deloy chasri ba mezainis. So too in such a case, the chiddush is that we consider a shvacha de memela. And more than that, the Rashbam asks a question. He says, why don't you just say lisni va'afam, we will know muchkeres umuskeres? And that the Rashbam says because in a case there is a chiluk lamaisa between muchkeres umuskeres and raya va'afar. The Raya Ba'afar, no one needs to give him a zaynais, Mesha'en Kain. Where it's leased out, there's still somebody that's feeding them a zaynais. And the Kamash Malon is that Lamaisa, since the Yisayim themselves are not doing anything, Ein Tarchmem Ela Acherem, we consider it the Shvacha, the Memela, automatic Shvach, and therefore the halacha is the Bechar is going to be Naitel Pi Shnai. Zok the Mara Mani, who is this? It's Rebbe. When we're saying earlier, this brisa that we learned, that a Bechar is Naitel B'Shvach, when it's a memela, when it's automatically, whose brisa is this? This is Rebbe, the Tanya, where the brisa says, Ein bechar naitol pishnayim b'shvach sheshavchu nechasim la'achar misa savien. The Tanakama, this brisa clearly says that a bechar is not naitol pishnayim. Rabbi Omer ani, I do say, however, that bechar naitol pishnayim b'shvach sheshavchu nechasim la'achar misa savien. However, avaloy b'shvach sheshbichu yisayimim. If the Yisayimim had to go and be mashbiach, then they do not get, then the Bechar is not going to get double. Another halacha, he says, Yarshu shtar chayv. The Yisayimim were Yirish a shtar chayv that says that Reuven owed to the father money. The halacha is Bechar naitul pishnai. And same thing with Yatza halei and shtar chayv. And this is talking about after the Chalukah, where shtar chayv came out, that the father owed money, and since he originally took double money, therefore he has to pay back double. Bechar noisen pishnayim. However, vim amar, if he says before the chalukah, eini noisen ve'eini noitil rashai. If a person, he has a rech to go over and say, I do not want to take double, then the halach is he's mutter to do that, and the Rashbam is masber, where, and Taisus, they both throw in cases where it works to the benefit of the assignment by saying, I do not want to take double. The Rashbam says, Im hochul Medina Sayam, for example, the brothers left to Medina Sayam. In such a case, it's Kedai for the Bechar to say, you know what, I'm not going to take double, because he is the only defendant over here. And Taisus brings down Oymiri, the Nafkaminim, Yisayim Ktanim. Same halach, what happened when the Yisayim Ktanim, the Bechar is the Gadol. So it works out to the advantage of the Bechar and his brothers to say, I do not want to take a double portion. Frakta Gemara, Ma Tamayu Derabanan. What is Takab Shan and the Rabbanan that say, even by automatic Shvach, you do not get a chelik in the Bechaira? Makra. On that the Gemara explains, it says in the pasuk, Lasis loy pishnayim, that what matana karye rachmana. The way we look at this extra portion that a bechara is naitel is a matana that what? Ma matana adimati liyadeh, just like a matana, until it gets into your hands, that's when you can receive it. And more than that, ein adam makna davar shaloi bala ilam. So if it's not in your hands, you have no rech to do anything about it. So to have chelik bechaira until you receive it fully, until then you're not going to get any double portion. The Rebbe, however, Rebbe that argues and says by Shvach the Memela you will get it. V'Rabbi Omer, it says in the pasuk, Amakra pi shnayim. And the Hainu, it says in the Torah, pi shnayim, and the Rashbam says, it could have said in the Torah, just you get an extra portion. Why do we put them together as a double portion? What's the pi shnayim? Makish. Chelik b'chayra, the chelik pashut, it's coming to tell us that we should have a hekesh. That what? Ma chelik pashut af agav d'loi matu liyadei. Just like by a regular chelik pashut. That the halacha is, even before the Bechar receives it, every son regarding Yerusha, it's considered in his hands. Af chelik b'chayra, af agav d'loi matu liyadei. Frakting marav rabbanan nami haksiv pi shnayim. However, what is Rabbanan going to do with this? L'chayra, Rebbe's right that it says Pishnayim and it doesn't just say they should get an extra portion. L'chayra, it's a good hekesh. On that, the Gemara answers, Ahu lemisrele echad mitzvah. It's coming to tell us that the Bechar has a kind of meitzer. The Hainu Rashbam is masber. What is the halacha when there are 3 fields? So the Pashut, he wants to say, I want to take the middle field. Like that, the Bechar is going to have to take the field on the right and the field on the left, and it's beneficial for the Pashut that he has the brother with 2 fields and he's in the middle. Like that, it's cheaper, he has better shmira. On that, the chiddush of the Gemara is that the Bechar, according to Rabbanan, he says it from Bishnayim, that the Bechar has a taina that he wants to get 2 fields that are next to each other. And more than that, however, Rabbi's also going to learn, V'Rabbi Zokter Eshbam, V'Rabbi Ikalamemer, the Hachsvari, the Chan Mitzvah Nafkalei Me'ekesha. The Hainu, Rabbi also understands this from a Hekesh. He understands it together. Pishnaim, the Hekesh of Meitzar, and Pishnaim to tell us that the halacha is a Hekesh, that even though it's not in his hands, it's considered receivership. Zokter Gemara, V'Rabbi Nami Haksiv Lasislai. Over there also says Lashon Lashisloi with Mashma Matana. And that the Gemara says, Hushim Amar Eini Noitel, the Eini Nois and Rashai. It's coming to tell us that if he doesn't want to take it, he has a schos not to accept the extra chelik. Amar Papa, Dikla va'olim, you have a small little palm tree and it got stronger eventually. Ara va'asik sirtun, you have a land that eventually on its own. The Lashon of Rabbeinu Gershom is, Shenizdavla meheleha, Shaharuach Hifriach Sham Zevel Misadas Acherois Ayakashin Shahayu Sham Balav Zevel. The point is that the way it turned into a better field is that it happened on its own. There the Kula Amaloi Pligi the Shakal, then it's not a machlokes that he's going, whether it's Rabbi Rabbana, he's going to get double a chelik in the portion. Keep Pligi, where they argue in Rabbi Rabbanan Bechafur Vavashufli. Let's see, you have these shoots and then it comes into ears of grain, Shluflafi, Vahabit Tamri. Or it turns into dates. You have a palm tree, it's only blossoming, and then it turns into dates. There Mar Sava, Rabbi's going to hold Shvacha de Memela, Umar Savar, Rabbanan's going to hold Ishtani, and therefore, since it's a Dava Acher and a Shem Acher, he's not going to get a double portion. Omar Rabba Barachana, Omar Avchia. Asa is who? Zakter Ashbam, the Dayan. The Dayan Paskin Kedivri Rabbi, the Allah is Asa. Or even if he paskin kedivrei chachamim, he paskin like Rabbanan, it's asa. So dayan lamaisa doesn't make a difference what he did, whether he was like Rabbi and Rabbanan. The Gemara is masber. What's the Havana one kuf? Chav dalid amid beis top of the amid. Misafkele that we had a shaila I halacha kerebi mechavei roi ve'loi mechavei rav. The hainu in our case we have Rabbi going against the rabbin. So the shaila is we know that halacha is Rabbi against a yachid. The shaila is the halacha like Rabbi even against the rabbim, since it's a suffix. I halacha kerebi mechavei roi ve'loi mechavei rav. I halacha is kerebi mechavei rav ve'afilim mechavei rav. Since it's a suffix, therefore whether the dayan paskin like Rabbi or the dayan paskin like Rabbanan, we say it's asa and we leave it as it is. Zok the Gemara Amar Rav Nachman Amar Rav. However, Rav Nachman says in the name of Rav, Asur lasois kedivrei Rabbi. And not only that, someone who's over is over a lav of loisate mishpat. And more than that if he does it, him asa eina asa zakter ishbam. Why? What's the avana of Rav Nachman name of Rav? Kasava halacha kerebi mechavei roi ve'loi mechavei rav. Therefore, the halacha is clearly like Rabbanan. However, this is Rav Nachman talking about dafka in the name of Rav. However, Rav Nachman didei Amar muta lasis kedevi Rabbi kasava halacha kerebi mechavei roi va'afilu mechavei rav. Amar Rava asa lasis kedevi Rabbi. However, them asay kasavar matin itmar. What's it mean, matin? The hainu we're inclined to say the halacha is like who? Like Rabbanan Ladil Cain lekatchila. However, the Rashbam says umiu I avad karabi avad. If he did it with the avad like Rabbi, we leave it the way it is. However, we are inclined to say like shitas Rabbanan. Tani Rav Nachman It says B'shar Sifri de Beirav. What's a Shar Sifri de Beirav? The Rishbam is masber that Sifri de Beirav is the Teres Kahan and Parshas Vayikra. So the Shar is other Svarim, whether it's Shemois, whether it's Dvarim. That's what we're going to be talking about on the Sefer of Dvarim. It says in the pasuk, B'chol Asher Yimotze Loi. Prat, it's coming to tell us L'shvach Sheshbichu Yarshim. La'achar misas avian, that the Bechor is not going to get if the Yisrael had to put in energy, etc., in order to produce more. However, it's a shvacha de memela, happens automatically, then he will get it. Umani, who's this? Shar Sefer de Beirav. It's Rabbi, Shitas Rabbi, like we just learned. However, we have the exact opposite in a different Shar Sefer de Beirav. It says in the pasuk, B'chal Hashem Matziloi, Prat, L'shvach, Sheshavchu Nechasim, Achar Misas Avian. Even Shvacha de Memela, which happens automatically, the Bechar is not going to get double. The Kol Shekain Shvach, Sheshbichu Yarshim, La'achar Misas Avian, the Loi Shakul. Umani, who's this Shita, this Shar Sefer de Beirav? It's Shitas Rabbanani. Umani Rabbanani. Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Shmuel. We're going to start a new sugya of Rav Yehuda in the name of Shmuel, which is going to be quite extensive, so we have to hold a little cup in all the shitas. We're going to start with shitas Rav Yehuda in the name of Shmuel. Ein bechar noito pishnayim b'milveh. The halacha Rav Yehuda clearly says in the name of Shmuel that a bechar is not going to get the double portion when it comes to halva after the misa. If you're going to tell me that Yehuda Mishmuel is going to cheat this Rabbanon, that what shvacha the mele not going to get it, hashta shvacha the isa bershusay. Madach when you have shvach, which is in its rishus, Amir Rabbanon leishakul milva mi bay, then it's a pasha to us that a milva, which is only something that you have no ownership right now. Understanding there's no ownership whatsoever, there's no muksakais whatsoever you're not going to get. So l'chayra, it's pashat elamai l'Rebbe. Elamai Rabbi Yehuda is coming to tell us shitas Rebbe that whole shvacha the mele you do get, shvacha that the Yisraelim put in energy you don't get. The problem is we have a brisa that says yarshu shtar chayv. The halach is bechar naito pishnai bein milvil bein beribis, and clearly there's a brisa that holds that by a shtar chayv the bechar will get double, bein b'milva, bein b'ribis. Ribis avada we have to be talking about in akum, it's a davar pashut. However, we clearly will come out, mani, loy Rebbe, v'loy Rabbanon. So how would you understand this brisa? Now it's interesting, we are going to say in a moment that brisa that Rebbe says, meferish, v'hatani Rebbe, oimi b'chor noitu pishnayim, bein b'milva, bein b'ribis. So there's a little tzarchi in why the Gemara brought a stam brisa and did not bring the explicit brisa of Rebbe, which you're going to see momentarily. On that, the Gemara answers, lo'ilam Rabbanon. Be'etzem Yehuda Mishmuel is going like Shitas Rabbanon. And you ask us a chayr davar pashut, milva mi baye, ve'itzrich. Why? Salka daitach hamina, I would have had a havamina. Milva, you know what's different by milva? Kivan de nokit shtara. We're talking about a malva, we're not talking about a milva peh. Milva peh is a davar pashut, that a bechar is not noitu pishnayim. However, since we're talking about a document, and the document is beyadav, you would have had a very clear havamina to say that it's considered muchzakais. On that, command the Gav Yadamya, Kamash Milan, that you are not considered a muksuk whatsoever. This is clearly Shitas Rav Yehuda in the name of Shmuel. Now we're going to have another Shita, which is Sholchu Mitam, the Shitas of Eretz Yisrael. Sholchu Mitam, which is, they say, it's Shitas Rabbi Lazar, he's the Tana that says this, that says as follows. Bechar noito pishnayim b'milva. A Bechar does get by a milva, avaloi beribis. So again, fraktu mar laman. Imile rabbanon hashta shvacha the isa bershusay. Ami rabbanon the loishako. Milva mi boy. It's a similar kashu we asked earlier. L'char it's a davar pashut. Elamai ela l'Rebbe. Fraktu mar. That's a problem. L'Rebbe ribis loiva. Tani we have a brayso meferish that says Rebbe Aimer bechar noito pishnayim bein b'milva bein beribis. So who is this brayso referring to? And that the Gemara says l'oilam rabbanon he. O milva command the Gav Yadamya. So we're doing the same shaka v'tari we did from Shalchum Mitam from Eretz Yisrael to the first brayso of Rabbi Yehuda Mishmuel. Amalei Rav Acha barav l'Ravina. The Ikla Amemer la'asrin. Amemer came to that place and he was darish and he gave a drush. He said Bechar noito pishnayim b'milva avaloi beribis, which sounded like Shitas Rebbe quite clearly. Amalei, so Rav Rabba tells Rav Acha, Nahardoi litamayu. Now who's Nahardoi? Amemer is going like Rav Nachman, which you're going to see Shitas Rav Nachman momentarily, which we're going to discuss by a milva. So Nahardoi is, and we learned it early in Daf Lamed Aleph, that Anam and Nahardoi, they both said, Amemer and Rav Nachman said that we're both from Nahardoi, and they're both going to hold that what? When a person owes money, it's considered a muksuk. How do we see this? The Amar Rabba, they actually changed it, the Bach changes it, this Gershut that we put Rav Nachman first, and more than that, if you look at the Rashbam, he clearly puts Rav Nachman before Rabba. So we're going to go with the Bach. The Amar Rav Nachman, Govu Karka Ein Loi, Govu Mois Yesh Loi. The Hainu, Rav Nachman is going to tell us in a scenario where there's a Malva. The Hainu, we're talking about Yisayim, and there's a Bechar. What is the halacha regarding, does the Bechar get a double portion with this halva? On that, Rashitas Rav Nachman is, it depends. If he got money back in return, the Hainu the Bachai paid him back with money, then he's going to get a double portion. However, if he paid him back with the karka, he's not. And the reason is, Rav Nachman, the Lashon Rashbam is, Sharei Mo'oi Silvo, Mo'oi Chashvina Le. The Maisi give him back the same money. You asked for $100, I'm giving you right back $100. Masha Enkein by Karka, we're going to see that Karka is a little different since he has his chus. More than that, since he has his chus to release the Karka, he never really had to pay him back specifically with that Karka. Rather, we're talking about the Karka was Meshubad. However, since the Karka was never really in his hands, and it's not that same Karka, therefore he's not going to go get double. That is Shitas Rav Nachman. Shitas Rabba is, Rabba says, Punk Fakert, Rabba says, Govu Karka Yeshloi. Govu Karka, when it's Karka, you do get. And the reason is it's Meshubad. And we're going to explain the Shitas Rabba a little better in a moment on Kuf Chav Hei. However, Shitas Rabba is, since the Karka was Meshubad to you the whole time, therefore, you were considered a Muchsuk from day one. Mashen Kain Govu Mois Ein Loi, because we all know Milva Lightzah Nitna. When you borrow $100, there's no havmina that you have to give back the exact same $100, but with the same serial number. Avada money is Lightzah Nitna, it's not the same money. So right away, the Gemara questions, Amalai Baya asks the Rabbi, Lidi Doch Kasha, you're saying, Govu Karka Yesh Loi, Govu Mois Ein Loi is going to be Shver, and Rav Nachman Kasha. You're both Shver, why? Zok the Gemara, Lidi Doch Kasha, Maishna Ma'is, what's the difference Ma'is Delay? You're telling me that when it comes to paying back money, the Bechar is not going to get double. You know why? You tell me the Lav Hani Ma'is, Shavak Avoid, because it's not the same money that the father left. Karkanami Lav Ha Karka Shavak Avoid. Why? Zok Dershbam, if he wanted, he could have easily sold it with money. So what in the world, what's the chilek between money and Karka? Va'oit, you're the one who says, oh, Mari the Amar that says, Mistaber Taima de Bnei Ma'arava. You're the one who's saying a Kuf Chav Heyam and Beis. We're going to see Shitas Eretz Yisrael, the Ikadim Safta Vizavna Zvini Zvini. The height of the scenario with this, of the grandmother, and to say the case outside, because we're going to see it in the bottom of the Amar, the Gemara is going to ask what this case is. The case is that there was Reuven, whether it was a Shchimera, he was dying. And he realized that no one's taking care of the Safta. So he had a good idea. He said, I want all my Nechasim to go to the Safta, like that everyone's going to take care of her. However, I don't want her Yershim, I don't want her kids to be Irish her. So what did he say? He said, after the Safta dies, it should go to my daughter. And the scenario was, the case was that there was a daughter, they had no kids, and she married someone, and the daughter died before the grandmother, and after he died. We're going to see that extensively, the story. However, we had a Shiloh, and the husband came, and the husband after the Safta died, the husband wanted to get the Yerusha. And that, we're going to see in Machlaikis, that they said the husband doesn't get it, really from different reasons, for Roy V'chule. And we said, and Rav over there says, it makes sense that he shouldn't get it. Why? Because the husband, the Safta, not the husband, always had the opportunity to sell the karka, therefore you can't consider it a muchsa. So that, frekta baya to Rava. You're the one who says in Kuf Chav Heyam Beis in the scenario of the Safta, then the case is V'zavna Zvini Zvini. So too over here, then we should be able to understand, in this case, in this karka, you're telling me that what? That he's a muksuk because it was meshubad. What in the world that makes a difference? Just like by the safti, you tell me the daughter's not a muksuk because he could have sold it. Huadin, in this case by the karka, we should say he's not a muksuk. That's why it's shver lefi rabba. Frektim Marav Nachman Zosukasha. Why? Maishna karka delay. The love ha karka shavak avoid. The hainu the same taina that we have by Mois. It's not the exact same karka that he left. Mois nami lav hani Mois shavak avoid. You tell me about karka because it's not the same karka because he should have sold it. Money kula amaydu light saw nitna. That's one shver. Va'id ha'amar Rav Nachman. Rav Nachman himself says in the name of Amar Rabba Ravua, Yisoymim shegavu karka b'chayves avien. Baal chayv chayzer b'goyve mehen. Dainu you have Yisoymim. They went. There was a Baal chayv. Reuven owed the father money. Lamaisi Yisayim went over to Reuven and took out karka. However, unfortunately, the father himself had also a chayv to Levi. Levi goes and he takes away the karka that the Yisayim took away. And we're understanding the Hav, meaning the only way to understand how Levi, who's the second Baal Chayv, could take away the karka that Yisrael took, Elamai, we can understand that the karka that was owed to the father originally was always a muksuk. That's why the Baal Chayv is able to take, because otherwise you cannot take away karka from Yisrael, metaltal, and etc. Elamai, we understand it's a muksuk. Therefore, we have two kashas on whether it's Rabba or Rav Nachman, we have the same type of kasha. The Chayr Shavak of Ulav Hai, either Mois or Karka Shavak Avoin, and we have Shver, either on Rav Nachman from Yisaimim we see by Karka Muksuk, or Rabba that we see in Kuf Chav Heyam Beis, he holds that the Safta is able to sell the Karka. On that Rabba tells Abaya, Amalei, Rabba tells Abaya, no. Loyli Didi Kasha, first of all, it's not Shver to me, Shitas Rabba. Veloy Rav Nachman Kasha. Not only was he defending himself, he was willing to defend Rav Nachman. And he says as follows: Taimo de bnei ma'arova kamrinon, v'lon loisvirlon. Dahainu, we're just saying shitas sholchu mitam. However, we don't hold like that. So to give extra avana, we said there's two shitas in Kufchav Daled on the base. We have shitas of Yehuda and Shmuel that clearly says the bechor is not noitul bishnayim b'milva, and then we have sholchu mitam that says you are geiva. And there was a machlokes Rav Nachman and Rava and sholchu mitam. On that Rabba tells Abaya, me and Rav Nachman, we both hold like who? We both hold like Shita Shmuel. Shita Shmuel is that a person is never goiva. Dahainu, we agree to your tainu. What's your kasha? Lav hai karka shavak avoin. Lav ha moi shavak avoin. I agree to that 100%. That's why I hold like Shmuel. However, in Shitas Eretz Yisrael, which is they're saying it's Rabbi Lazar, Shitas Eretz Yisrael, that does say by a milva you do go back. Me and Rav Nachman differentiate. Is it referring to money? Or is it referring to karka? And what's the bira machlokes? The hainu, we said earlier the Maisa of the Safta. So Zok Rav Nachman, I see from the Maisa of the Safta, since you're able to sell it, Elamai, you can't consider karka as something that's a muksuk, because I see by the Maisa of the Safta you can sell it. Therefore, by default, I have no choice but to say that the Shitas Eretz Yisrael, Elamai is only going to be talking about money. However, Rava says, no, you can't compare the Maisa of the Safta to our Sugya. Our Sugya is talking about a Milva, and we're talking about a Milva, it's something that's Meshubed. The Safta, there was no Shibet going on. And more than that, on a real Avanadika level, it's much easier to understand Shitas Rava that explains that Dafka by Karka, we could say you're muksuk the whole time and money not. Because money is clear, like Son Nitna, and when a person lends you $100, that money is gone. And you're hoping he pays you back, he'll pay you back with different money. But imagine I go over to someone, I say, can I borrow money? Can I borrow your phone? And I say, you know what, I'm going to hold on to something till you pay me back. And when do I hold on to it? I hold it the second I lent it to you. So I'm holding on to this thing, and then you come back to me 5 minutes later, you say, you know what, keep it. So if you ask anybody, everyone will tell you, when were you a muksuk? You were muksuk from the whole time, since the second you lent to them, you never let go. That, in essence, is what Shibit is. Very nice. You had the opportunity to sell it. Lamaisa, you didn't. And since you didn't, Zok Rabba, Lamaisa was holding on to it the whole entire time. Therefore, I'm considered a muksuk. So it comes out the Maskana of the Sugya Kuf Chafei. It really comes out to Machlokes, Rav Nachman and Rabba, is are we learning from the Maisa of the Safta or not? However, they both hold, like Shitas, Rav Yudah and Shmuel, that Allah is, you can never be Goyve b'milva, Bechor is never not to Bishnayim. However, Shitas Eretz Yisrael that says you are Goyve Bishnayim, that's a Machlokes, Rabba and Rav Nachman, if it's Dafka Karka, which you're going to learn the Maisa of the Safta, or it's Dafka money, and therefore, it's really totally in the Maisa of the Safta. On that, more questions. What is the scenario of Safta? We said it outside, but my Safta. What is this incident that we're talking about with this grandmother? On that, the Gemara says, there was a person that tells his family, one Kuf Chaf Hayam and Beis, Nichsi la Safta. I wanted to go to the grandmother. I'm planning on giving her all the nechasim. However, Basra, after she dies, Basra wanted to go li yarsai, to my yarshim and not to her yarshim. And again, it makes sense if you really think about it. The whole incident sounded like that he wanted to take care of the grandmother because the children weren't taking care of the grandmother, her own kids. So that makes sense that he doesn't want to give over the Yerusha to her kids. Therefore, he wanted to give it to his kids. Ubarta liyasai. Now, Havale Barta, Lamaisi only had one daughter. The Rashbam says it was one. The Havan Esiva, she was married, let's say, to Reuven. And Shechiva Bechaye Baila Bechaye Safta. Lamaisa, she died. This Rachel, we'll call her Rachel, the daughter, died before the husband and before the grandmother. Basra, the Shechiva Safta, now that the grandmother died, Asabal, came Reuven, the husband of Rachel, Kotava, he wants to get the Yerusha. So Amar Rav Huna wants to say, Rav Huna and Rav Anan are going to make the machlekes. What did this person, when he said that a chasam should go to the Safta and to the Yarshim, did he mean dafko, one generation Yarshim, but it shouldn't continue or not? So Amar Rav Huna, when the person said, Liyarsi, he meant, Vafil Liyarsi Yarsi. The point was, I wanted to go to my daughter. Instead of going the direction of the Safta's kids, I wanted to go to my kids. However, that shita is Rav Huna. Rav Anan said no. Rav Anan said, you dafka sel Yarsi, you're willing to give it to your daughter, but you weren't willing to continue the generations. V'lo Yarsi Yarsi. So Sholchu mitam, they sent from Eretz Yisrael. Hilchas kavasi der Rav Anan. The halacha is like Rav Anan that the Baal is not going to get the Yerusha. However, v'lami tamei. Hilchas kavasi der Rav Anan, the Baal layoris. That's clearly. So we agree to that. However, v'lami tamei. Ilu Rav Anan savar. Rav Anan held afagav the havale brale barti layoris. According to Rav Anan, it would come out if this Rachel had a daughter and then Rachel died, the fear of Anan, that this person, when he said Nichsi L'Safti, he was only willing to give it one generation. He was not willing to go a second generation. However, that's not true. We hold, Avad, if there was a son from this Rachel, it would go to the son. So what? Shot, this Reuven, the husband of Rachel, is not Yairish. Ubal hainu taima de layaris. You know why? Mishom dahavele ra'oi ve'ein habal naita b'roi k'b'muchsuk. Like we all know, we went through this extensively. A husband is never Yairish Yiroi. Only when it's perspective, it has to be a muchsuk. We saw it from the Psuk. Zok the Gemara, Michlal, you're telling me that Rav Huna says you are yours, but that can't be. The Kulam, everyone agrees a husband is never Yairish Ra'i. So Amar Rav Elazar says, Niftach B'Gdayim. Rav Elazar was being a little on him. He says it was open with Rav Huna. I'm going to end it myself. I'm going to explain to you what's going on. Rav Elazar wants to say, when this person says, I want the Nechasim to go to my daughter, you know in essence what he was trying to say? He's saying, in reality, I want my Yerusha to go to my daughter. However, since no one's taking care of the grandmother, I want the grandmother to have the schus to utilize the property till when? Till she dies. I'm giving her a schus ishtamshus. On that, Amar Rabba, and that Rabba says, no. Mistabra time of the B'nai Ma'arava. Sounds like, I'm not willing to go like Rav Elazar. Why? I'll prove it to you. It's not the sugya over here, it's a later sugya, that the halacha is in such a scenario, the grandmother has the schus to sell it. So how could you, Rebbe Elazar, try to tell me that it's only a schus ishtamshus? You only have a schus to utilize the property. That can't be. V'araya, the grandmother can sell it. Elamai, this is what we brought down in Kuf Chav Hayam at Aleph, with Shitas Rabbah, it's Mistamer time of the B'nai Ma'arav, and he's comparing it, Taka, to the case of the Safta. Amra Papa L'maisa Hilchasa, Ein Habal, Noitel kiberoi kibemuchsuk. Ba'atzem, we all know Ba'atzem, ain't about noitel beroi kibemuchsuk. Beroi mamish. And more than that, here Rapapa is coming to tell us that beroi, that we had a machlekes, Revi Rabbanan, we said, what is the halacha? When you have a blossom and it turns into dates, we saw the machlekes. On that, he wants to say that's dafka by a bechar. However, a Baal, Kula Amamaydu, there's no machlekes in a case of a date tree where it turns into dates. There, everyone agrees, the husband, it's going to be considered a muksuk regarding the tree and you're going to get it. Ve'ein abachar, Rapapa continues and gives us another halacha. Ve'ein abachar, noitel beroi k'bemuksuk. The Hain Rapapa is coming to tell us, like Shitas Rabbanon, that we look at it in the scenario of Shlufli v'havre tamri. However, Dikla v'olam, he will agree. The ein habechar noitel pishnayim. Another halacha is the bechar is not going to get pishnayim b'milveh. Bein shegova karka, bein shegova mois, which is, we all know, this is shitas Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel. O milveh shimoi palki. The hainu one kuf chavavim and aleph. However, what is the halacha when Reuven, who's a son of Shimon, Reuven lent his own father money? Now Shimon died. The question is, how do we look at that extra portion? And the Rashbam is masber. The Havamina is, the suffix really is, maybe the Bechar was willing to give an extra shibit nechasav la'aviv legamrei, u'ba'ayin yafe gomer. The Bechar knows, he's a smart guy. He knows that if I lend my father with the extra strength, it's going to come out of the father, Rahman Salman is nifter. He's going to be able to get it double portion. We're going to look at it as a muksuk. So therefore, since it's going to help his own benefit, that's the suffix. A person is willing to give it with an extra ayin yafa, and that's the shaila. Do we say maybe not loishna mishar malveh? There's no difference, and therefore it's mammon hamutuk besafik, and we are going to split it. Amar Rav Huna Amar Rav Asi. Bechor shemicha micha. Dahainu, Rav Huna wants to say in the name of Ravasi that you're right. A Bechor is not noitul pishnayim. However, in a case of shvach. However, Zok Rav Huna that a Bechor always has a right to say, you know what? I don't want to wait till you guys improve the property. I rather split it today, and I'll hire my own people. It can make a lot of sense in a scenario where the Bechor, let's say, is a builder, or he owns a company that helps him, that he doesn't want to split it. He doesn't want to wait till you to improve the property, and like that, you're going to end up not getting double on the shvach. On that, Zok Rav Asi, a Bechor has a right to protest and say, I want to split it today. Like that, the shvach is going to be considered a muksuk because I'm the one who's going to be improving it. And if they don't listen to him, in a chanami, it's considered a muksuk and he's going to get a double portion even on the shvach. Amar Rava, mistaber time of the Ravasi. Ba'anovim, dafka when you have grapes, with sarm you cut it off, or zaysim, you have owls, umaskim, and you harvest them. Avodarachim, the hainu, you smash them. How do you smash them? By stepping on them, the way to make oil and wine, etc. Light, and we're understanding the havmina is the reason why the Bechor, even though he didn't listen to him, he's not going to get a double portion. The Rashbam says because they're regular gazlanim. You were supposed to split the property. You went and took the olives, and you were kainit. We're talking about the pashut, who's not the Bechor. He was kainit b'shinoi, and therefore we all know kol hagazlanim mishalmem kashas exela. Rav Yosef Amar, afilu derachim. Even if he went and he did such a case, the Bechor is not going to. The Bechor is still going to get a double portion. Why? Lamaisa, we all know Baba Kama Derachim Mikara in Vihashta Chamra. Lamaisa was kind of kashas exela. So why in the world should the Bechor get a double portion? On that, the Gemara answers to the Amar of Ukma Chama, like we're going to see in a moment. Rav Ukva says, "Leitin light mehezik, leitin light mehezik anova." I'm not coming in to tell us that Kol HaGazlanim Mishamlin Kashas Exela. That I agree with you, that he's not going to get the Bechor is not going to get taka a double portion. However, in a scenario where they cause a hezek, in such a case, the Pashat is chai for the hezek, Achanami, nice and loy, the May hezek Hanavav. And more than that, just to bring out one point, with Anavim Mutarim, even if the Pashat didn't listen to the Bechor, there's no question about it, we're not going to knas the Pashat and say, okay, you're going to have to lose. Whatever profits that the Bechor got, that he either way would have had to pay, that, to Dava Pashat, he would have to give it to his brothers. So, Heiche Itman Rav Ukma Chama, where do we have this Rav Ukva? Aha, Dam Rav Yudah Mashmol, Bechor Pashat, Shenich Len Aviyem. Anavim Uvitzarim, in this case, Zaysim Masakim, Bechor Naitu Pishnayim, Afilu Derachim, even if he went and turned it into oil and wine. On that Amar Ukva we're talking about again Leitin Lloyd May Hezek Anavov. So that's the case where Ukva clearly says the Yerchayev for Hezek. Amar of Asi Bechor Shenotal Chelek Kepashut. The halacha is Viter. The item of splitting up the properties. Ruvain, who's the Bechor, tells the other brothers, you know what? I don't need a double portion. I'm willing to take only like a portion. So the halacha is he's mevater, clearly there's no question about it, you can't retract in that, then you're mevater. However, for Ektigmar, my viter. Now, the question really becomes is, what happens when there are other properties that the Bechor and the Pasha are going to split? Do we say once you're mevater in all the other properties, or maybe not? However, a puppy mishmei the Rava Amar, no. Viter bechol hanechasim kulam. You're clearly mevater in all the other nechasim. So what's the machlekes? The Gemara explains. Rapapi mishmei the Rava Amar vita bechol. Rapapi mishmei the Rava Amar vita b'ayis sada. Why dafka this sada, not all the other sada? Is kasaver ein loy lebechar koydem chaluka. The way we look at it is not like a Yerusha. Yerusha, the second the father dies, the Bechor and the Pashat, they already have a schus in the Yerusha. It's theirs. You don't need to do a physical, you didn't do any Maisa Kinyan, etc., in order to be considered that it's your property. You're Yairish. However, whatever is the dividing today, we're dividing this field. Yamachal, Idach, however, the rest of the property is Layach. Vrapapi Mishmei the Rav Amar. No, Viter, Bechol, Hanechasim, Kulon. The second Yemavati and everything. Why? Kasava, Yesh Loy the Bechar, Koidim, Chaluka. The Hainu, that the Bechar, even the extra portion, is considered a chelik it's considered like a Yairish, and therefore, since he gets it immediately, therefore he has a schos to be mevater, and once he's Michael this, he's Michael everything. Now, just to bring out one point, it doesn't sound like there's a machlokes that is he be'etzem Michael everything. It sounds like he's willing to be Michael everything. The question is really, the machlokes Rapapi, and Rapapi is can he be Michael everything? Avad, he wants to be meichel everything. Rather, the machlekes is, can he be meichel anything? And that's a shaila. How do we look at the extra bechar? Is it a chelik? Is it a yerusha, or is it like a matana? And therefore, we all know by matana you have no rech to go and give it up before it gets it into your hands. V'hader papi rapapa, that we're saying, they're both saying in the name of Rava, la beferish itmar. They're not be'etzim heard this from Rava. Ella michlala. There was a ma'aser, they heard it from Rava itmar. Why? Dahu bechar da'azl. There was the bechar who went, and Zav and Nachsi did David the Pashut. Reuven was a bechar, he went and sold a property of a Pashut, without asking his brother. Avada, the Rishbam says he was planning on paying his brother. He wasn't looking to be a Goslin. He was just willing to go and help and sell the properties. However, Azal Lamaisa, he died. The Pashut died. Azal Yasmi B'nei Pashut Lamechal Tami. They wanted to go eat their dates because they helped Lamaisa that the father would have sold it. So Mahana Lekuche. So what happened? Mechunuhu. The Rishbam says they started hitting the Yisayim. So Amrli Kraven, the Yisayim got up. And they told the Lekuchos, it's not a good it's not enough that you bought the whole entire property illegally. The Pasha was not involved in the sale. You're also going and going to start hitting them? What is going on? So the Maisa, they decided to go in front of Rava. Asa committed Rava. Amrlahu, he says, Asa v'loi klum. The Bechar did not do anything. Why? Because he had no rech to sell the Pasha. So Mar Sava Papi held like Asa Klum, it's Dafka one Kuf Chavava Mebeis, like Asa Klum, it's Dafka Bepalga. In the Cheluk of the Pashut, he had no rech to sell, therefore he didn't do anything. Mashenke in the Cheluk of the Bechar, he did have a rech, his own Cheluk, there's no problem with selling it. Umar Savar Bekulu, even the Cheluk Bechayra, since they never split up the property officially, he had no rech to sell the property before Chalukah, and therefore we want to say this is the machlokes that we learned it from Rava. Amma ein le bechar koydem Chalukah. So that's where he's saying that the bechar has no rech in the portion before Chalukah, and therefore a bechar cannot be mevater on all the nechasim. That was the machlokes Rav Papi and Rav Papa. The hilchos alamaisa yesh le bechar koydem Chalukah. Mazutram and the Rishba Palak Betzana the Pilpuli. He was a bechar. And he went and he split up, he had a basket full of peppers, and he split it up. Achim b'shavi, he didn't take an extra portion. So Asik midar Vashi, Amalei Hayil, V'tarta b'mixas, V'tarta b'chol and nechasim kula. Dahainu, it sounds like Hilchasa, that like we just said, that the Bechar has Kaidim Chalukah, and therefore you went, by splitting up this basket of peppers, you were mevater and everything. One, the Mishnah, Kuf Chavav Amid Beis. Ha'aymer, L'char Pshuta, we're talking about a Shchiv Mara. That says, Ish Pliny B'ni Bechar. He wants to say, Reuven the Bechar, Lo Yito Pishnaim. He's not going to get a double portion. Or another case he says, Ish Pliny B'ni, I want one of my sons, Lo Yirash Machav. He shouldn't get any Yerusha. Lo Amar Klum. Why Zak the Mishnah? Shehisne Amasha Kasa B'Tayra. Since he's using a Lashon Yerusha, and the Torah clearly we have a say the Nachlis, the Torah tells us that all the brothers have a schus to get their father's portion. You have no right to go against the Torah. However, hamechalik nechasav, again we're talking about the shchimera, that he doesn't need a kinyan because he's a shchimera, al pif. Hamechalik nechasav al pif. Riba la'echot umiyad la'echot. He says, I want Reuven to get 80% of the property. He says, a lashon matana. And I want Shimon to get 20%. And Levi, I feel bad, but I'm not willing to, he's not going to have anything left. The halach is, ve'eshon lahenes a bechar, or he says the bechar is going to end up only getting 50%. Dvarov kayamim. And the reason why it's dvarov kayamim is that he's not going against the Torah. The Torah has Hilchas Yerusha. And you want to know if he's going to be Irish, the kids are Ivadi Irish. Unfortunately, there's nothing left to be Irish. Because it's like a person going and gives right before his death. That's what the Hilchas Lamaisa, that's what we do today. When people, proper people in the right savas, when they have daughters, etc., they make sure Hilchas Lashon Matana. We do it today. We make sure that we give it a Matana a second before he dies, etc. The point being that Avadim and Din Yerusha, the kids are Irish. There's just nothing left to be Irish. However, again, because he's going against the Torah. Kasaf, bein betchila, bein be'emtza, bein b'soif, mishum matana. Whether the way he words it, as long as he puts in the word of matana that is given as a matana, dvarav kayamim, and the Gemara is going to explain what the case is. Our Mishnah, clearly, it's not going to be like Shitas Rabbi Yehuda. Why? We know Shitas Rabbi Yehuda, the Rabbi Yehuda, Amar B'Davash Mamayin Tanai Kaim. A person has a right, as long as it's Mammon involved, regarding money, he has a right to go against, we're going to see regarding Kedushin, to go against what the Torah says. Why the Tanya? If a person walks over to Isha and he says, "Areat mekudeshes li al menas she'en lachalai sher ksus," I know which is the chiv of the bailim that he all has to give what? He has to give mezainas, clothing, and aina. Harezu mikudeshes. Why? V'tanai batul divrei Meir. Meir holds l'maisi masne amash shekaseh b'Torah. The Torah clearly says that a husband has to give these three things. Therefore, it's not going to be. He still has to give it. However, Rabbi Yehuda by davar shel mamayin tanai kayim. Clearly see Shitas Rabbi Yehuda holds by davar shel mamayin. Dahainu regarding the sheviksus, a person has a recht to be mevater. The isha has a recht. Masha'im kain the Rashbam throws in regarding the aina, which it's hard to goof that she's not meichel. But regarding the money, we see tanai kayim. So who then over here lachar handing hilchas money? That's what we're discussing the Rusha, which is money. So in our understanding is if so, our Mishnah cannot be like Rabbi Yehuda. And more than that, we know we paskin like Rabbi Yehuda. So that Gemara says, "Afilu teim Rabbi Yehuda." You could say about the Mishnah like Rabbi Yehuda. Why? Ha sam yadav kamachla. You're right. Here we're talking about the Isha. You're approaching the Isha and asking, you know what? I'm willing to get married, but I don't want to give you Shervik Sus. So Zok the Gemara Zok the Yehuda by he no. That she's willing to be Michael. She has a choice, and with the Hana she wants to marry him. She's willing to be Mavater. So that makes sense. Hachal like a Machal. Mashenkin over here. When you think the father asked the son, "Are you willing to be Michael your portion?" Avada not. There's no chance in the world that the son says, "I don't want to get the Yerusha." So therefore, you can't compare the case of Kedushin to our scenario where the son is not willing to be Michael. Amr of Yosef. A person gets up and he says, Ish plaini b'ni b'charhu. A person gets up and he says, Reuven is the b'char. The halacha is he's nema. Naito pishnayim, and therefore he's going to get double portion. What happens if he says Ish plaini, just the words b'charhu? Now to clarify, it's very possible, even today you see it with second marriages, etc., that there's a very simple concept of a person being the bechar to who? Just to the mother. If the father was married before and had a daughter or had a son, doesn't make a difference, and then gets remarried to a pesula or someone who never had children, the first kid, as long as it's going to be a bechar. However, it's only bechar le'ima, but not bechar to the father. And the nafkamina is, clearly, is to get pishnaim or not. So, however, he just says, Ish pointy, my son, this person is the bechar. Ein a night to bishnaim. Dilma, why? It's very possible. There's no vadais coming out of him saying that it's a bechar from himself. He says, Muchzakani bazeh shuhu bechar. I know, a guy comes and says, I know that this person's a bechar. I guess they're handling b'shas Yerusha. They want to know if he gets a double portion. How do you know that he's talking to the bechar? He says, the father would go and say, this bechar, the shaita. Sichla is a lashon shaita. Maybe punkt. He means dafka the bechar from the mother. Why? The reason is the bechar. Someone's a bechar from a mother. We call it a bechra. We call it the bechar shaita. Now shaita, not a lashon of crazy, rather shaita of incomplete. And the Rashbam says we have a similar concept. Ahadas shaita. The hainu ahadas is not complete. The kuhula, it's missing stuff. It's not kosher for dalad minim. So too of a bechar. Let's be real. A bechar only from the mother. Is that complete bechar? Typical bechar is a bechar from the mother and a bechar from the father. Therefore, he's saying bechar shaitit to tell you, punkt verkehrt, you're incomplete bechar because you're only a bechar from the mother and not from the father. Who also committed another ma'aser der Chanina? Amalei muchzkani b'zeh bechar. I know he's a bechar. Muchzuk that he's a bechar. Amalei mi no yadas. How do you know? Amalei, do you know how I know? Whenever I show up to the father, Amalahu. Zilu legabe shichas beri. And the Rashbam is mazba. What happened was people had issues with their eyes. When they see something fascinating, he would say, "Go to my son shichas." Now it's interesting. The Rashbam brings down in Chavav. We saw Rav Chinan himself had a son shichas, and he died. Why? He cuts the nasi b'loy zimni. He cut a tree before its time, and he died. We learned that Chavav and Alf on the bottom. However, it's not the same son. Someone else shichas. There was a person. He would say, "Go to my son shichas." The buchruhu. He's the bechar. Umasi ruke, and let him put his saliva in your eyes and it's going to heal him. So the more question, how do you know that he's bechar from the father? Just by saying, go put it in your eyes. Mar answers, we have a tradition, Gmiri, Bukhra da Abba, Masi Ruke, Bukhra da Ima le Masi Ruke, which means to say something fascinating, it may be a little hard to understand. We have a tradition that the saliva, only from the bechar of a father, could heal issues with the eyes. Okay, quite fascinating. However, if a bechar from the mother cannot heal on this issue. Omer Abami. We're going to go through a quite extensive sugya of tumtum. Tumtum androgynous. Tumtum is something, is a person that's born. B'shas Maisa, we don't know if it's a zachor or a keva, because the zachrus is in the guf, and it was never mitzi yet. So what's the halacha? L'maisa tumtum b'shas leida. No one knew if it was a zachor and a keva. L'maisa shenikra. And the zachrus came out. Now there's no havamina, there's no shayil in the world that it's a zachor. V'nimsa zachor ein a naitel pishnayim. Now we're talking about a tumtum. The case talking about a bechar. Now this tumtum, when he gets old and the father dies, he's saying, I want to get double portion. The halach is he doesn't get it. Why? Damakra, Rabbi Ami says, since it says in the pasuk, V'haya haben bechar. We're learning from the V'haya, which is extra. Haben bechar lisniya. Achi ben mishas avaya is leida. Until b'shas leida, when it was born, we had to know for 100% certainty that this was a zachar. Nachman Yitzchak Amar, another halacha is going to apply, which is a kula for this tumtum. Af eina nidan ken ben sayer mari. He's not going to have the halacha of ben sayer mari, like we all know. He ends up doing gazlanis. He doesn't listen to his father, etc. The halacha is we kill him. So too over here, he's not going to have a halacha of ben sayer mari. Damakra ki yiyeh. We're learning also years miyusul ish ben sayer mari achia ben mishasavaya. That is the second halacha. We have another halacha. Neimar Amar af einoi mima'et. Chelik b'chayra. We're not, regarding the b'char's portion, we're not going to consider this tumtum as a person. Rashbam explains, for example, let's say you have $900. So how are you going to split it? The halacha is, we're going to put the tumtum aside regarding the portion of the b'chayra. Therefore, the b'char is going to get $300. Just like a typical, when it's only Reuven and Shimon, out of $900, he's going to get $300 for the b'chayra. We're left with what? We're left with $600. That $600, we split it with the tumtum. He comes back in. Therefore, comes out 200. So he's going to come out that the bechar in such a scenario, he's going to end up with $500 out of the 900. What's the difference if, let's just make the cheshbon, if we would count the tumtum in? So you'd have to go what? You'd have to take 900, divide it into 4, which is 225. It comes out the bechar is going to get 450, and everyone's going to get 225. So the nafkamina is really, in such a case, of 900, nafkamina is $50, let's say. In the case, the bechar is going to get 450 instead of 500. But Dr. Meimar, he's going to get 500 in such a case. Again, why? Shenemar, since it says in the pasuk, again, we're learning extra drasha, Achi ben b'shas leida. That is Shita Samim. We have another Rashizvi now, Omar, Af Eina Nima, what already the fourth concept of a tumtum. Rashizvi Omar, Af Eina Nima l'shmeina. We all know Chil Shabbos, we all know a bris, we do a bris. Be'yoim hashmini, since it's Be'yoim hashmini, it doesn't make a difference, even if it comes out on Shabbos. Da'amekra, Isha ki says real. V'yolda zachar. Again, we're playing with the yolda zachar. U'beyayim hashmini imol achiyah zachar has to be the yolda zachar that we know achiyah zachar mishatz leida. This is the fourth halacha. Rav Shiravi, which is the fifth. Amar af ein imay tmeya leida. The halacha is by leida. There's a chiluk between a zachar and a keva. Zachar is tamei shivas yamim. Then he has a vada tahira of 33 days, and the keva is the opposite. There's a chumrah that it's tamei vada 14 days. However, has a vadai tahar of 66 days. However, he wants to say af, so he's not going to have a halacha of tumas leida because it's a tumtum. We don't know what he had. Was it a zachar? You can't tell me yes. Was it a keva? You can't tell me yes. Therefore, it doesn't have tumas leida. We're going to see in a moment what he might have is certain tumah. We might go to chumrah. Again, Reb Shirav Yamaf Eina Tmiya Leida, the Amakra Isha Kesazriya, again, V'yol the Zachar, V'tmeya Shivas Yamim, Achi Zachar Mishas Leida. Frektamar, Meisvei, we clearly say, Hamapelas Tumtum, someone who has a miscarriage, or Tumtum, Adroginus is that it's a Zachar and a Nekeva that has both, Sheishle Zachrus Vinekevas. In such a case, it says, clearly, Teishev, Lizachar, Villanekeva, that has, not only has a Tumas Leida, we have to go to Chumrah. We had to say that you have to be Machmir 14 days. And you only tar like a zachar. So if you make the cheshbon, it's going to come out 40 days minus 14 that it was a vadei tummy because you're going to the chumrah. You're going to end up with only 26 days of kashrus as opposed to either 33 or 66. So the chayra tiyufta, it's a bomb tiyufta, and who there is Sharavya that says you ain't it me later tiyufta. Fact tomorrow. Lema David tiyufta shizvi. Shizvi says regarding a bris milah, l'chayra to also be a tiyufta. My answer is no. Tana, you have sefukim isafkele. We had a shayla, you could be mechalik between Shabbos. You're right. It was bad to misafik. So regarding Shabbos, you're going to tell me you're going to do chil Shabbos misafik or not. That's why we don't do the bris. The same thing with tumah. Misafkele, v'lechumra, and we go lechumra. However, Shiravia said clearly the kula that he doesn't have a tumas leida. Fraktimara, ihachi, teshev, lezachu, and a keva, nida. What happened to nida? Maybe Bechlal wasn't a real leida, and if it wasn't a leida, what is she? She's a vada nida. Mi violate. My answer is you're right, kasha, and the Rashbam is masber, but tiyuf de mamish it's not. And the reason why we don't say it's a tiyuf de mamish, why? Because the matzi l'memer tani, you could change it and say yes, throw in the word lezachar, v'lenekeva, v'lenida. You could put it in. Amar Rava Tanya Kevasid there of Ami. We're going to show us a rioter of Ami that told us the halacha that tumtum shenikr v'nimtza zachar is not going to get a double portion. Ben v'loy tumtum. Since it says ben, not a tumtum, and bechar, it can be a suffix. V'loy suffix. So bishma ben v'loy tumtum, we just understand. Keder of Ami. El bechar v'loy suffix lafuke mai. Who are you coming to tell us otherwise? And that the Gemara says, you know why? It's coming lafuke halacha Rava. Rava said halacha as follows. Lafuke the darish Rava. The darish Rava. What is the halacha? Shtei nashim. You have two ladies in a cave. Shial the Beis Char. B'machve, they're in a cave. And now you don't know, Rachav and Leah, they both had kids. They're both coming from the same husband. The shaila is, who's the bechar? So the halacha is, kaisim harsha'a zel lezeh. Which means to say it's, you had Reuven, you had Rachel and Leah, they both had a kid. Now, and then later on, they had more kids. So the two brothers, all the other brothers ganged up against the two brothers and said, you guys, none of you are the bechar. You have to go prove it. And therefore, we're going to take that extra portion and split it with everyone. On that, Rava said a chap. The only shaila is whether it's Reuven or Shimon. It's only those two that are v'ad bechar. So you know what you should do for yourself? You two gang up. You two write our shah, which is a memon of shach. If I'm the bechar, then give me it mitam I'm the bechar. You're going to tell me I'm not the bechar. The brother's the bechar, but the brother wrote me our shah that he's giving me a schus to be gaiva for him like that. They both, it's a memon of shach. They should get the chelik bechayra. So on that, we're coming to exclude to tell us in such a case you cannot do that since there's no vadais who the bechar is. Amalei Apabla Rava. I have an issue with what you're saying. Why? V'ashalach Ravin. Dav is a sha'ati l'chara b'ysev. V'lo yamar li dava. Beram, however, kach amar mishum Rabbi Yanai. Hukru, dafka when it's hukru l'basoif nisarvu. Kaisvin harsha zelazeh. Only when there was a time where Reuven and Shimon, we all knew at the time that Reuven was the bechar, not Shimon. And then it got confusing. However, loy hukru, your case, ain't kaisvin harsha zelazeh. So Rava, he was an anav, he wasn't putting his midas, his gaivan anything. He said, Uki Rava Mayar Aleh. He brought the darshan, the one who repeats what he says. And he says, V'darish, Dvarim shamarti lechem tosim biyadi Itaka, I made a mistake, I apologize. The halacha is not like what I said. However, why? Beram kach amru mishum Yane. However, they did say, it's hukru. If it was hukru l'basayif nisarvu, kais min hashah zelazeh, Loi hukru, the scenario where I said earlier you could, it's not true. Ein kaisin harsha zeh lezeh. Shalchu lebnei akar da'agma l'shmuel, they sent to Shmuel. Yalamdein Rabbeinu, teach us. Haya muchsukani bezeh shu bechar. What is the halacha? We all know that he was the bechar. Now the Rashbam says, what's it mean muchsuk bezeh shu bechar? It was a kol ba'ama. And rather when there's Eidim testifying, they were there, they know he's a bechar, there's no shaila about it. Rather there was a kol ba'ama, like we said, that he called him my son the bechar. The Amar Aviv, Lamaisa later on, the father decided, he says, no, not Reuven's the Bechar, rather somebody else. The Amar Aviv al Acher Becharhu Mahu. Is the halacha, do we believe the father what? Against the Chazaka. So Shalchalahu, he sends him back. Kais min Arshah zelazeh. He says what they should do in such a case is taka right Arshah. I knew he's staying out of it. So Fraktamar Manashach. Fraktamar on Shmuel Manashach. Ikar Rabbanan Svile, if you hold like Rabbanan, Lishach like Rabbanan. Ikar Yehuda, we're going to see Chitas Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbanan, and that's why we're going to see these two Shitas, what he holds like. Then hold like him. Ikar Yehuda Srei, Lishach Rabbi Yehuda. My answer is Mesafkel Ikar Yehuda, Ikar Rabbanan. He wasn't sure to say like Rabbi Yehuda Rabbanan, therefore he said right Harsha. Fraktig Mara, one Kuchazayin of a base, Mahi. What is the machlaikes? Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbanan. And then we said the Tanya says in the Brisa, says Yakir. Why does it say in the Torah Yakir, which is an extra kroy Yiseiru? Yakirenu la'acherim. That the father has a schos, and to say this is not the Bechar, rather somebody else. And more than that, Taisa says it could come out that he's even Maitzi Las. He's even saying, for example, to make it easy to understand. What happens, you have a family of five boys. There's no shaila about it. The oldest is 30 years old. And the youngest is 4 years old. Imagine the father pulls up to the house one day and says, I hate to break it to you. You know who the Bechar is? My Bechar, the youngest. In essence, he's saying that Banel is Mamzerim. He's not only that, he's saying all the older brothers are Mamzerim. That's what is coming out. So in such a case, Dr. Yehuda is Neman, because says Yaakov to tell us that he's Neman. Mikana Yehuda, Neman Adam Laimar Zebani Bechar. Ukashem, more than that, not only is he Neman that says Bechar, Kashem Sheneman Adam Laimar Zebani Bechar, Kach Neman Adam Laimar Ze Ben Gerushav is Mechalutza. He's able to say he married his wife after they got divorced, and therefore my kids are a chol. However, Chacham arguing say Einoi Neman. This was the Shaila who wasn't sure. Is the halacha like Chacham and the not believe the halacha is like Yehuda. Amalei of Nachman Yitzchak l'Rava Bishlam of Yehuda. We understand. Hainu d'chsev Yaakov. That's why we have a Kroi Yisera to tell us that he's believed. That's the Chiddush. El Abana Yaakov Lameli. My answer is B'tzar Chakera. Rashbam says, for example, they pull up the town. No one knows who's the Bechar. No one knows anything. The father's belief. They say we're not against the Mukhsar. When there's Stam, a Shaila, who is the Bechar? So it's tomorrow. Why do we need Dr. Abanon? You need to come tell you that he's the Bechar. To tell us that he gets double. Why should he be different than anybody? He has his chutz. It's a migu. It's a tiniest migu. He easily could have said, I wanted him to get a double. I want to give whoever I want to give it to. So what is the case? My answer is we're talking about nechasim that fell after he said he's the Bechar. So therefore, a person ain't not the makna davar shabalaylam. That's why it's dafkas nechasim. In fact, the Marla according to Shittas Rameir, it should work. Then why do you need Yakir? We're back to square one. Our answer has been a chasim shenafaloi kashu geisis. And the Rashbam says we're talking about a geisis. And the geisis is what? Eina yachol ledaber ve'ein by koyach litein. And even Rameir that says adam makna davar shaloi balaylam is only if he's able to do it. A person that cannot do it physically, then Rameir's maida ein adam makna davar shaloi balaylam. One kuf chav zayin am based by the two dots. Taner Rabbanon hayim muchzakani boy shu bechar. It was a muchzak that Reuven is the bechar. V'ama avel acher shehu bechar. The halacha is nema. Hayim muchzakani boy she'ein bechar. What is the halacha? We know he's not the bechar. V'amar avel becharu ein nema. Frektamar, Zaktamar, Reisha Rabbi Yehuda comes at the Reisha is like Rabbi Yehuda the nema. V'seifos is Rabbanon the not nema. Amar Rav Yochanan. What is the halacha? Amar benihu. A person gets up and he says, "This is my son. This person's my son." V'chazir, and then later on he retracts. V'amar says, "No, it wasn't my son. Avdiu." Ein nema. And the Gemara is going to explain Shitas Rabbi Yochanan. However, if he said it the opposite, first he says, "Avdiu. This is my slave." V'chazir, v'amar benihu. This is my son. Then he is nema. Why? What I meant to say is my Eved. I meant to say is he's such a good son. You would think he's a slave. He mamash takes care of me like an Eved. However, v'chilufe a beis hameches. It's the exact halacha, is the exact opposite by a beis hameches. Why? The Rashbam is by beis hameches. If it's an Eved, you have to pay taxes. If it's a son, you don't pay taxes. So imagine a person pulls up to the taxes and he says, "This is my Eved," and it's really a son. You got to be crazy to do that. Now you have to pay taxes. Mashenkin, it's very possible that he's your Eved. Really, he's your Eved, and the reason why you're calling him as a son to evade taxes. That's why chilufa beis meches. However, ami abdu. If you say you have a chazam benihu, you got to be crazy. Then ein nema. Frek the mara meisvei. We're asking Rabbi Yochanan, says ben. Person's mamish treating him like a son, he's doing all the stuff a son does. So this is not shver. The kasha is right here. It says a person is mishamish like Evid. Question is, we just said moments ago, in such a scenario, Rabbi Yochanan says, you are neman. On that, Amar Rav Nachman Yitzchak Hasa, there it's different. This case we not neman. This second brayso, you know why you're not neman? The karule avda meitza mea. He calls him an ever that's like a boundaries of 100. For example, my meitza mea. What's he saying? Meitza mea. Meitzer avda kov zuzi. When a person says this guy is worth to me only like $100, by talking such a sprach, by putting a number that a person will never do for his son. The son doesn't have a number. Elamai, it was really his ever. Sholach le Rab Abba. Rav Yosef bar Chama. Rav Abba is going to send to Rav Yosef bar Chama 7 different halachas. And the reason why we're mentioning this is, the Rashbam says, because one of them, which is going to be the 5th case, which is what we saw in Kol Chazayim Beis and Top Machlekes Rav Yehuda and Rabbanan, it's going to be coming for that shita to tell us Rav Yehuda and Rabbanan. Therefore, Rav Abba is going to send 7 different halachas. So let's jump right into it. Let's go through the first one. Sholach le Rab Abba le Rav Yosef bar Chama. A person tells his friend, Avdi ganafta. You stole my slave. I didn't steal it. I don't know what you're talking about. So he says, what's it doing by you? So he answers him back, Ato mechartali. You sold it to me. Or another option he says is, Atoi nasatali b'matana. You gave this to me as a matana, one kuf chesam at aleph. And the Rashbam is masber, even though we all know, we learned in the beginning of Cheskes Abatim, Daf Lamed Vav, that a goyjus ravadim, animals and avadim, do not have a chazaka. The reason is because they can move. The Rashbam gives two options, either that we said over there. Either we're not talking about la'alter, so he already doesn't have the chesed metalton. We're talking about gimel shanim, which an eved does have. That's option A. Or we're talking about a newborn, which cannot move, and the Gemara was ready masber over there since. An eved that's a newborn cannot move, that's a baby, that avada has a cheskes metalton. So in such a case, there's no shayla about it, he's naman. However, he was a chacham. You know what he tells this person who's tiny Zev, and he's saying, Ritzaincha, if you want, hashbe v'tol v'nishba. If you want, go make a shvur. Now, more than that. First of all, you don't make a shvur on karka. Eved is hukas karka. And not only that, whenever a person does make a shvur, it's always shvuas haneftarin. The mukslik makes the shvur and he's potter. Here, he gave him a double. He says, make a shvur if you would like. Not only that, make a shvur v'naito. The halacha is, eina yachal achsabay. After the guy makes a shvur, or even before, a person is not allowed to say, nah, I was kidding around with you. No such a thing. The second you gave up your schusim, the halach is he's able to make a shua and he gets it. Frektamar, my kamash malon, that he's able to give up schusim. Tanita, we have this in the brayso. Now a father is not neman bin a Torah to be a dain, but he says, I want my father, your father in the case. I trust him. Or neman alay avicha, or neman alay shleisha raya bakar. Raya bakar, we all know. Stam raya bakar, stam shepherds are what? They're gazlanim, and therefore they're not pasulidin. But he says, you know what? Let's bring them in. The halach is Reb Meir Omer. So very nice. We clearly see like Shitas Chachamim. So what is your Chiddush? On that the Gemara says, a Kamash Milon, the Be'etin Chamachleikes, V'alacha Kediver Chacham. There's a big difference, the case over there and our case. The case over there, what is he doing? He's just being Mevater Chusim. He's saying, you know what? I could have a taina that he's a Raya Bakar. And since he's a Raya Bakar, Stam Gazlanim aim there for the apostles. I'm giving up a schus. Masha'enkin over here in our sugya, he's willing to tell the Avda, and he's telling him, not only you don't make a shvur, in shvur on karka, I'm willing to give you the schus to make a shvur on karka, and you'll do a shvur on nightland. So that's the chiddush. Even in such a scenario, it could work. And the halacha is like chacham. That is the first case that Rabbi Abba sent. Let's go through the second case. Shalach le Rabbi Abba le Rav Yosef bar Chama. Halacha is goyvin min avodim. V'Rav Nachman Omar ain't goyvin. There's a shayla is, what is the halacha by an eved? Can a person b'chayiv take the avodim away? Now, the reason the machlekes is that a person wants to say the Shitas Tanakama is going to say halacha is goyvin avodim because avodim is hukash l'karka. And just like karka you can take away, who would then avodim? Rav Nachman says, come on, it can be hukash l'karka from today till tomorrow. What is the concept of b'chayiv? The reason why b'chayiv knows he can take a property, what's the mile of a lina property? Because karka doesn't move. And eved, you could go to any country you want and sell it, get rid of it. Therefore, it's not going to work. We're going to see later on that the Gemara is going to say, since we all know the halacha is like Rav Nachman, we're going to change this gersa. This second case, we're going to get back to it, that no one holds of goyvim and avodim. Shalach le, we're on the third case. Shalach le Rab Abba le Rav Yosef bar Chama. Halacha is shlishi b'sheni kosher. So shlishi b'sheni kosher is, to make it easier, to make it very clear to understand, it's a first cousin once removed. Very simple. You have 3 generations, shlishi b'sheni. So you're already, if you put Reuven, Shimon, then you go down 3 generations, you're really in essence a second cousin. A sheni would be a first cousin once removed, and then another generation would be a great uncle, and then when you come to your side, it's grandfather, father, and you. So here we're talking about shlishi b'sheni means a first cousin once removed. Allah is kosher. Rav Amar after Rishon, even going up, which is what? A great uncle. Now Rav Ashia, I was achsher ba'abba da abba. He would even say a grandfather. However, velez hilchas kamar Rav Ashi, the halachas we all know is not like Mar Rav Ashi. Why? That a person is never nemon. De bnei banim, uvnei bnei banim, ad elef dairis can never be mayed. Why? Can never be made. The ben yerech avichu. Therefore, the halacha is avada not like Mar Rav Ashi. And we're going to see this very clearly. We're going to go back to this also this case. Next case, Shalach, we're on the fourth case. Shalach le Rab Abba le Rav Yosef bar Chama hayedei be'edis karka. A person knows regarding a testimony. Ad shaloi nistamet, before he became blind, and now he's nistamet, he's pasul. V'nistamet, the halacha is pasul. Why? Because b'shas edus you cannot give testimony. V'shmuel argues, Amar kosher, after the mechav mitzarna, since Lamaisi, you're right that he's blind today, but when he saw the karka, when he saw the edus that he wants to test, so he's going back on his memory, and therefore he can use landmarks, etc. Aval glima, he's mighty when it comes to clothing, loy. If you look glima, after the mechav midas rachba, you're able to tell exactly the length and the width of a suit. That takes special yediyah. You can't say he would know it without seeing it. Aval naska, regarding a gold or silver bar, lie, because that's normal. Papa says no. Filanaska. After the mechavim, this mishkalaisiv. Imagine a person comes and says, "This bar is 1.835 grams." Elamai, you taka no. You were there at the time, and you put on a scale. Frak Demara, we're going to ask the kasha and all these amarim that say that the halacha is even though you're nistame today, you could go back since you saw it at the time. Frak Demara, we have a brayse that says, "Amish may say, a person who edus ashalei nasa chaysnei became a son-in-law, ve'nasa chaysnei, or pikeach v'nischarish piseach v'nistame." Here's the kasha. Shafoi, a person was normal when the shtata became ois normal, is meshuggah, the halach is pasul. Right here, ready is the kasha. Well, let's do the seifa. However, he became his son-in-law, so now he's pasul. Before he was a son-in-law, he was not pasul. Now he's pasul. Umeisa bitoi, now he's not a son-in-law, and there's no kids, let's say, to make it easier. Or pikech v'nischaresh v'chazav v'nispakeach. Or piseach v'nistame v'chazav v'nispateach. The point is, you had 3 mahalchim. You were blind, you were normal, you became a sugar, came back to normal. You were able to see, you became blind, you're back to seeing. The point is, there's a middle before the edus, before the etzem edus, there's a period in your life where you would be pasul. All those cases. Or shavim and ishtav v'chazim ishtav, the halach is kosher. Why? Zeh haklal. Kosher tchilasa isayfe b'pasul pasul. The point is, right now, today you're pasul. Tchilasa v'isayfe b'kashros, kosher. Doesn't make a difference if you had what we call a bad stage in your life. Today you're good, then you were good, everything's fine. It's a bomb kasha, and anybody, all them Arayim, Shmuel, Rosh Hashanah, Papa, they all said in such a case you're kosher. How could that be? We clearly says over here, in such a case you're pasul elamai tzitiyufta. What? The 5th case of Rav Abba, and this is why we brought this whole daf. It's just for this case. Shalach Rav Abba Rav Yosef Barachama. Ha'oimer al tinok ben abonim. The halacha is neman. The Gemara is going to explain what is he saying regarding this tinok. Rav Yechon Amar Einanem. Frak the Mar, my kamar. What is he saying? Amar by Hachikam. Oimal Tinuk ben Abanim, that I want to give him Yirash Konachas Nema. Who is that shita? We're going to see the shita on the Mishnah later. Rav Yechon Abraika, that holds a person's able to say son, Bain, Habanim, or Bas ben Abanim. See Neman. Rav Yechon Amar Einanem, Karabanim. Frak the Mar, Masku Rava. Hi Neman has nothing to do with Nemanis. Rav Yechon Abraika, the Machlekes Rav Yechon Abraika Rabbanon has 0 to do with Nemanis. Masku Rabba. Hi Neman, the Ein and Neman has nothing to do with Neman. It's Yirash v'lo Yirash b'voyelei. It's a shaila in the meantime Yerusha. Could he do it or not? That's a machlekes. Rabbi Yechon Abraika and Rabbanan. Elam Rava Hachikama. Ha'oimer al tinak ben Abanim bechar. He's the bechar who Neman, like we just saw earlier. Who sheet is that? It's Rabbi Yehuda. He learns that out from where? From Yakir. The Kriyasei Yakir tells me he's able to do that even against. We said even saying the brothers Amam Zeir. Rabbi Yochanan, Ein and Neman, Kerabanan, and it's taka why we brought all these cases of Rabba. However, Rabba didn't stop. He brought another 2 cases. Shalach le Rabba Rav Yosef bar Chama. Ha'omer titol ishti ke'echad min abanim. I want my wife to get like one of the sons. The halach is netelas ke'echad min abanim. Amar Rava dafka, since he's given a Moshe Matana, can't be Yerusha. B'nechasim shel achshav, it has to be nechasim of today. U'b'nechasim abayim la'achim mikan. There's also going to be a chesaron for the wife. Why? Because since what is the halacha if the wife has more kids? So since the banim, let's say whenever if there's only 2 kids and you're splitting it up, there's much more money. If you're splitting it up with 10 kids, and she's considered only one portion, she's going to get much less. If the kids die. The last case is Shalcher Ababel Rav Yosef Achama. Hamaitzi shtar choy v'alchaveiroi. A person's maitzi shtar, it says you owe me $100. Ma'avoy meloy nefrat, I never got anything back. Look. So right here, typically it's a regular scenario of what? We all know Yechai b'shvul. However, the problem over here is, what gets a little sticky is there's Eidim. The Eidim are testifying Shapara Kulei. The halach is, Harezeh nishba v'goy v'mechsa, like a shvuas maida mixas. However, from what? You can only get nechasim b'nei chayrin. You can only get from b'nei chayrin. Shubadim loy. Why? The Amri, the Lakuchas Ketayna, Anan, we're relying on Eidim Samchina. Therefore, you could get half and only b'nei chayrin. V'afilu zaktimura. So let's just give a little context to understand what's going on. Meishav Aveda is a person's walking in over here, walking in Scheiner's, and he finds a wallet. And the halacha is, he picks it up, he sees a license, he gives it back, and the guy says, what's going on? I had $1,000, I only see 500. The halacha is, he's patur mishvua, even though in essence, he's minded that he took it, and he's only paying back 500. The reason is, tikkun olam, we said we want people to return aveda, therefore he's not chayv shum. Tikkun olam. That is the concept of meishav aveda. However, more than that, we have a machlekes of Reb Kiva and Reb Shimon ben Elazar. Machlekes is as follows. What is the halacha when two people are holding, it's the beginning of a mitzvah. A person has a shtar. Now it says in the shtar, a plural lashon the yomi slime. Now the minimum of plural is 2. So in essence, he's really holding on to a shtar that says, you owe me $2. Now the malva says, you owe me $5, which the shtar just says plural, doesn't say anything. Now the leiva could have stayed quiet, and he would have been chayiv only 2, because that's what the shtar says. However, he says 3. So the shaila becomes, how do we look at that extra $1? Is he a meishav aveda, because he could have stayed quiet? Or no, he's a regular maida mixas. So it's a machlekes over there, Reb Kiva and Reb Shimon ben Elazar. Reb Kiva says you like a meishav aveda, and therefore you're patur shvua. Reb Shimon ben Elazar argues and says, no, you're maida mixas. Therefore you are chayiv shvua. So Zok Gemara, even like a Kiva over there that says the Amar in the beginning of Bamatzian Daladom Beis Meishav Aveda Have, that's Hani Mile Hecha Delaka Edom where there's no Edom, because the Edom are just testifying on the bottom. They're not really giving an Edus. Aval Hecha Deika Edom Irsusi Irsas. The Hainu, the hack was that there are Edom involved. Now the Bezdin, they subpoena them to come. Now, the Malva, Bain the Leiva, no one really knew who are the Eidim going to go with. Are they either going to defend the Leiva or are they going to defend the Malva? So since this guy is getting scared, he's saying, wait a second, there's Eidim involved. Maybe the Eidim are going to go against me. Therefore, he said 3. That's why he said half. And that's why he's chayiv. Maskala, Marbar Rashi, Adarabba. Afilu Reb Shimon ben Elazar over there that says the Amma Maida Mixas Ataina Have. The case from Matzia consider Maida Mixas. Hani Mili over there, Hechadalak Edim. There's no Edim whatsoever. The Kamasayele, Belecha, the Ika Edim, the Kamasayele. Here's understanding, not like this. There was Edim. Vadai, Meshev, Avedim, Have. And he's not saying we're not chayshish. We weren't worried that he's going to come against him. Darish, Marzutcha, Meshmei, Reb Shimon ben Rashi, Hilchas B'chalahani Shmaitza. All these 7 halachas is like what? Kedushalach le Reb Abba le Reb Yosef Acham. Amar le Ravina. I have a problem with the second case. Amar le Ravina Rav Ashi Rav Nachman Nai. We saw the second case was regarding if you could be goyvim and avodim or not. That Rav Nachman says ain't goyvim and avodim because in reality, let's be real, avodim are metaltalim. So no bachayv relies in it. And Tanakam over there says no, avodim have a halach of hukush lekarka. The problem is, you tell me the halach is like Rav Abba. How could that be? We all know the halach is like Rav Nachman. Amar le, you have to say ain't goyvim as nisan law. There is, you read it, that there's no machlekes in that second case. Rather, everyone holds you're not goyva. And the reason why you're not goyva is why? Is because, let's be real, a person does not think that he's going to get the chay from the ever because the guy could just disappear with it. V'chein, and you read it, v'chein, Rav Nachman also agrees to that. So, frak Gemara, you come to tell us the halach is like Rababa. Why would you think otherwise? So, we're on Kuf Chav Tesem and Aleph. If you're coming to tell us Rava, which was the case of the Shlishi B'Sheni, which was the third case, that we said that the first cousin once removed, Allah is your kosher. Rava went extreme. Rava said even a great uncle. We saw Maravashi says even a grandfather. So Gemara, Ila Fukim the Rava, Maisifu. Maybe just he's not arguing Rab Abba. Maybe Rab Abba himself would be minded that he could testify by a great uncle. The reason why he says first cousin once removed because Kachava. You're going to come tell me that Ravashi says a grandfather? That we already said over there. Ravashi. So Elamai, your third case is out. Ila Fukim in the Shmuel Rasheshis Rapapa. Elamai, you're going to come try to tell me the fourth case, which we said all the 3 cases in a scenario where there was a time, right now you're blind. We already said there. We knocked it out clearly in the top of Kuf Chav Chesam Beis. Ella la fukim with Rav Yochanan. Ella, you're going to come knock out the 5th case that we had. The 5th case that we saw, which was what? Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbani. You wanted to tell us that the halacha is like who? Like Rabbi Yehuda. Umedaskafta the Mar Rav Ashi to dismiss what Mar Rav Ashi was tiny. Mar Rav Ashi was saying maybe you're scared, maybe you're not scared. That was saying a person Lamaisa is scared. And that's why there's no taina of Mar Rav Ashi. Okay, we're on Kuf Chav Tesem and Aleph by the 2 dots. HaMechalik Nechasav, our Mishnah told us, HaMechalik Nechasav al Pif, Ribo la'echad umiyat la'echad, clearly said in such a case, as long as it's not a Lashon Yerusha, the Var of Kayamim, And the Mishnah, fair ice, and Kufchafam Beis, as long as you put a Lashon Matana, it's going to win. And it doesn't make a difference. Bein B'amsa, Bein B'tchila, Bein B'seif. So right away, there are more questions. Hey Chidam Matana B'tchila. Hey Chidam when you use a Lashon B'amsa. And Hey Chidam B'seif. See, Kiyasir of Dimi, now it's a little, we have to halk up a little because there's going to be 3 different shittas, really 4, Reish Lakish. But we're going to have Rav Dimi's name Rav Yechanan. We're going to have Shitas Rabbi Lazar, and then we're going to have Ravin in the name of Rabbi Yechanan. Then we're going to have Reish Lakish. So let's hold over here. Hey Chidami. Besaif. Kiyasir Rav Dimi. This is Rav Dimi's Ma'alach Amir Rabbi Yechanan. When a person says, Tinasen Sadeh Plainis Leplaini V'Yersha. So again, Zuhi Matana B'tchila. I'm saying I want to give a Matana to Ruvain Sadeh Plaini, and he should be Yersha. Zuhi Matana B'tchila. Yersha, I want to be Yerush to Ruvain, and I want to give it to him. Zuhi Matana B'Saif. Yersha, he says, I want to be Yerush to Ruvain in this field, and give it to him, and he should be Yerush. V'tinasan Yersha, Zuhi Matana B'Amsa. However, Shitas Rav Dimi, the Rabbi Yechanan is going to hold according to Rav Dimi, Dafka ba'adam echad. Dafka when it's one person, it's Ruvain regarding one field, the Sada Achas. Ava ba'adam achad. Let's say Ruvain vishtei Sadas. I want to use a different Lashinas for 2 different fields. Or Sada Achas, one field, but Ruvain half the field should get as a present. And the other half, I want to Yirish to Shimon. Vishnei b'nei Adam, loy. So again, Shitas Rabbi Yechanan is very, very machmir. Dafka one person, one field. That Shitas Rabbi Yechanan according to Rav Dimi. Rabbi Lazar Amar, no, I feel all the machal shtei sadas. Even 2 fields, as long as it's one person, or sada achas v'shnei b'nei adam, or it's one field, even though it's 2 people, the halacha is, it's going to work. Avo b'shtei, sadais, v'shtei b'nei adam, 2 separate cases, mamish, 2 fields, and 2 b'nei adam, light. So that's Shitas Rabbi Lazar. Kiyasa Ravin, now when Ravin came to Babel and he said, Amar, Ravin went extreme in Shitas Rabbi Yechanan. He says as follows. He says, if a person says, Tinasen Sadeh Plainis Leplaini, I want to give this field as a matana to Ruvain. V'yirash Plaini Sadeh Plainis. So mamish, this is a case of, let's be clear, this is a case of Shtei Sadis, Shnei Bnei Adam. We just saw Shitas Rabbi Lazar, even Rabbi Lazar, according to Rav Dimi, that's machmer against Rabbi Yechanan, that's mekel against Rabbi Yechanan, is going to be maida. However, in such a case, according to Ravin, he learned this as context of Rabbi Yechanan and Rabbi Lazar himself, Rabbi Yechanan Amar Kana. So according to Ravin, Rabbi Yechanan is the most kuladik. He holds, even in a case of Shtei Sadais, is Shnei Bnei Adam, it's going to work. However, Rabbi Lazar Amar Loikana. So Amar Abai tells Ravin, Anachat Aslan Chada, you made one thing easy, one thing shver. Why? I could get out of it very quickly. Like Kasha. Rebbe says we're talking about however, this in the second case, which is 2 bnei Adam and 2 sadas, Rebbe is my that he clearly says like Kana. The problem is Rabbi Yechanan. Rabbi Yechanan Kasha. More than that, Rabbi Yechanan's double shver. Because Rabbi Yechanan over there is the one that's machmir. Here you're going to the opposite extreme according to Ravin. More answers. Am I wrong? Rabbi Yechanan ain't a chanami. It's a machlekes Rav Dimi and a machlekes Ravin in Shitas Rabbi Yechanan. How extreme does Rabbi Yechanan? They're mamish the opposites. According to Rav Dimi, Rabbi Yechanan is the most machmir. According to Ravin, Rabbi Yechanan is the most mekel. Reish Lakish says, now we have the 4th shita, which is Shitas Reish Lakish. Reish Lakish Amar Loi Kana, a person is not Kaina. We're talking about Shtei Sadeh Shnei Bnei Adam. Achi Yaimar, the only time it could work, Zok Reish Lakish, when it's Pliny Uplaini, this is what he's saying, Reuven and Shimon, Yershu, so it's already, he throws in Lashon Yerusha Sadeh, Plainis. This field, Uplainis. Shenasati lahem, he uses Lashon Matana, B'matana, so he uses double Lashon Matana, V'yirshim. Zok Reish Lakish, the only time it could work, Shtei Sadais, Ushnei Bnei Adam, it's dafka when he puts 2 Lashon of Yerusha and 2 Lashons of Matana, like that we can connect the 2. Since they're separate, the only way it could work is a Maisa B'fnei Atzma, they're not, Reuven and Shimon, and Sada Aleph and Sada Beis have nothing to do with each other, therefore they can only work with a Lashon Matana, Lashon Yerusha twice. However, Zok Reish Lakish, if you only have a Lashon Matana, for example, you say your Lashon Yerusha, Reuven, and Lashon Matana, and then you only say Lashon Yerusha to Shimon, what's going to happen is we're going to say the Matana is Rish and Rishon. We're going to only say the case is going to be that Reuven is going to get a Lashon Matana, but not Shimon. Therefore, the only way to be kind to Zakter Rish Lakish is in a scenario where you say, Reuven and Shimon, I wanted to be Yairish, Sadeh field and Sadeh base, that I gave them, which is one Lashon Matana, Matana double Lashon, V'yarshum, Elamai, Zakter Ishbam, Dal Karchach, Yershu Kama, Oila al Reuven, Ubas al Shimon. The double Lashon in Yerusha is going on Reuven, one for Reuven and one on Shimon. Therefore, you're using a Lashon Matana for both, for Reuven and for Shimon. Therefore, Zaktar Shbam, the Ikar Tarti Zimni Lashon Matana, the Katsash and a Satin Lamb, which is a double Lashon, the Satin Lamb Matana, that's why it's going to work. However, Zaktar Shbam, if you say Pliny should be Yair, Sadu Plynus, Plynus, and you should give Matana, Sadu Plynus, it should be Yairish, in such a case, it's not going to work. Reuven, since it's two separate people, two separate Sadus, in such a case, Zaktar Rish Lakish, it's not going to work. Bepalukta, Zaktar Martz Machlaikis Amar Nuna. We already have such a machlekes in Merayim. Amar Nuna. Lo Ishana, which is Shitas, we're going to see with the Shitas. Lo Ishana lo Damachas, Visada which is Shitas, Reb Yechanan, Reb Dimi's Reb Yechanan. Aval Adam Achas Shtei Sada is Achas. Ushne Bnei Adam Loi, which is Hushita, which is Shitas Reb Elazar. Reb Nachman Amar, Reb Nachman wants to say, I feel Adam Achas Shtei Sada, Sada Achas Shnei Bnei Adam, it's going to work. Aval Shtei Sada Shnei Bnei Adam Loi, which is Shitas Reb Elazar, and that Reb Sheshes goes extreme, which is who? Is Reb Dimi, is Ravin's Reb Yechanan. It's going to work, which is Shitas Rab Yechanan's, according to Shitas Ravin. Again, this is quite complex to Shitas. Again, this is only a Chazarah. On Friday we did this quite extensively, the three Shitas, because it's quite confusing. It's really four Shitas. Again, you have Shitas Rab Yechanan's. We have Rab Yechanan, but that itself is a Machlekes, Rab Dimi and Ravin. Again, according to Rab Dimi, Rab Yechanan is the most Machmer, Dafka 1-1. Then we have Shitas Rabbi Elazar according to Rabbi Dimi, which is Rabbi Elazar is somewhere in between. 2-1 is going to work. However, 2-2 is not going to work. And then we have Shitas Ravin in the name of Rabbi Yechanan, which is the Whammer. That's going to be a double. 2-2 is going to work again. For who? Shitas Rabbi Yechanan. And then we have Shitas Rish Lakish, which is quite complex. That you need to have two Lashinas of Yerusha and two Lashinas of Matana for both of them in a case where it's a 2-2 in order to work. Amrav Sheshis. Where did I know this halacha, the 2-2 work? The Tanya, we have a brayse that says, a person says, Tnu shekel ubni, I want to give my shekel b'Shabbos. Shabbos doesn't mean the Yom Shabbos, rather for a week. He wants to give his kid $1 a week to live on. V'ruyin litin sela. Today it's COVID, inflation, v'chule. It's no chance you're living on this. The halacha is he needs double. The halacha is nice on sela. Avad, you have to give them double. V'im amar, however, al titnu lahen ela shekel. Don't give them more than $1. A nice them ela shekel, and that we only give a shekel. The Ma'aser Rishman says we don't hold like this. Avad, we give them what they need to live on. And the reason why he's being tough was tough love. He wants them to go out to work, go hustle a little, go make your own money. However, Vim Amar, one Kuf Chavtasam base, Vim Amar Emesu Yershu Acherem Tachteyen, Bein Shaim Atnu Bein Shaim Altit Melachas Enaisalam Elo Shekel. So now let's be clear. In this case, what is he really doing? He's giving him a Matana and he's giving him a Yerusha. V'hacha Dikashestei Sadais Ucheshnei Bnei Adam Dami. Over here, where he's giving a Lashon Matana to his sons, and then he's giving Yerusha to somebody else. Viktani the Kani. So it's mamish a case of Shteis Shtei Sadis, Ushnei Bnei Adam. So it's a raya l'chayra to Rav Sheshetz, which is also going to be a raya to who? To Ravin, is Rabbi Yechanan Aliba the Ravin. So who Maisiv Law, who Mefarek Law? No. You know what we're talking about? Bera'oi liyarshadain. And the reason why it's Mefarek Zokter Shbam, the light tikshi l'chaveirav. He's saying, Batsam have a bomb raya to myself, but I don't want my chaveirav having it shver. You're not going to ask them shver. I'm going to answer you. We're talking about Ra'oi Yarshai. Not because of Matana. The reason why it works is because they were Ra'i and like who, which you all know, Rabbi Yechanan ben Breiki. Amar Rashi, now we're going to bring a raya to Rav Sheshes again. Amar Rashi Toshma. If a person says Nechasa, which I'm going to give you in the Nechasim, which is a Lashon Matana, V'acharecha Yirash Pliny, V'acharei Acharecha, after you Yirash Pliny, the halacha is Meis Rishon, Kana Sheni, Meis Sheni, Kana Shlishi, V'meis Sheni, B'chaya Rishon, the halacha is Yachzu Nechasim Liyarsha Rishon. So Zoktamar, V'hacha, in this case is, D'cheshtei Sadais, U'cheshnei Bnei Adam Dami, because again, you're giving the first person a Lashon Matana, the second person Yerusha, and it's two different fields, B'ktani the Kana. And it clearly says, you are kind of. V'chi, you're going to tell me like what we tried saying earlier. Their Sheshes himself defended his friends. V'chi, you're going to tell me, that can't be in this case. Why? Because why is it when Mei Sheni, when the second person dies, the third person gets it? Kana Shlishi. That can't be. Shalach Rav Acha Barida Rav Ayla Divrei Rabbi Yochanan Mebraika in the this case of Nechatzalacha V'charecha Lapleni. V'Rishon is royally Yarsha. Ein L'Sheni Makam Rishon Klu. Why? She'ein Zelasha Matana. El L'Lashin Yerusha. V'Yerusha Ein La Hefsek. The Yerusha's not going to stop. So Elamai, you can't tell me the case is royally Yarshai. Teyufta, the Kulu, Teyufta, Lamaisa. We have a Maisa walking away with the Sugya like who? Like Shitas of Sheshes and Shitas, Rabbi Yochanan Liba, they're Raven. So tomorrow, Layman Ami Tafta Teyufta the Rish Lakish. Let also be Shver according to Shitas Rish Lakish. Mar says, and that can be. V'tisbra of Amar Rav Hilchas Kavasa Rish Lakish Bani Tlas. The Gemara explains Yivamis, the Hilchas like Rish Lakish, and this is one of the cases that Hilchas like Rish Lakish. So like Kashan, my answer is Kan bit Toichadei Dibur. When it's Toichadei Dibur, whether it's Shalom Alecha Rebbe or Shalom Alecha Rebbe Mayri, it's a big machlekes apaiskim 3 or 4 words. The point is, if it's Toichadei Dibur, the halacha is Yakana. However, Kan, where we're saying you're not kind is the lie is the Acher Kadei Dibur. The Hochasa and Lamaisa, it's going to come out Kol Toich Kadei Dibur Kediber Dami. Dahainu, whenever a person is mitzvah in his mouth, 2 things. We don't say that he retracted what he said. Rather, it's like we say that he meant both. And whatever sticks, sticks. So therefore, if the Rashbam says, Haray like Tmur Ayla, Tmur Shlam, and we split it. Because we could say is mechavin to both of them. Now what happens? One of them could be typhus, one of them cannot be typhus. For example, when a person says Lashon Yerusha, which is not typhus, Lashon Matana is typhus, we're going to go with Lashon Matana. And what happens if it's a stira? Well, we already learned the base core. It's a machlekes, do we say typhus Lashon Rishon, or typhus Lashon Hacharon? However, to fair ice, if a person's very clear and he says, I'm retracting what I said, Teichadei Dibur, that's not a shayla that everyone holds, it could be chayzer. However, what the halacha was saying, called Tachadei Dibur Dami, there are 2 scenarios we don't say that. Labar, Ma'avoidis Kechavim V'Kedushin. My person, when he says, I want this tree to be Avoidis Kechavim, to be for the Goyim, to be Avoidis Zara, and then immediately retracts, the halacha is, even though, Ba'atzem, it's Tachadei Dibur, the halacha is, we say, has a din of Avoidis Kechavim, Shakis the Shakitzan, who tells us that even Medin, it should be kosher, we say, we're machmir, we say it is going to be puzzle, and Kedushin. I know a person goes over, Reuben goes over to Rachel and says, I want to marry you, Almanas, X, Y, Z, I'm going to give you this matana. He says, you know what, I'm chayzubi. The halacha is, since we're talking about, we're worried that there's going to be laws on the kids. They're going to say that Rachel was really married, therefore it's mamzerim. Because of that, we say she has halacha mekudeshes. The einim mekudeshes, it's only midarabanan, that she needs to go over to the person that said this and get a get. One kuflamidam and aleph at the last daf, we're on the Mishnah on the top. Ha'oimer ish ploini, a person gets up and he says, I want Ruvain, ish ploini or sheni, b'malkim sheish bas. I want my brother to be Irish, I don't want my daughters to be Irish. Or biti der sheni, I want my daughter to be Irish. When? B'malkim sheish ben. Loi amaklum. Why? Shehisna masha kosabatayr. However, Rabbi Yochanan ben Breika Amar, Oimer im amar misharali yarshay ben abanim, that's where we understand. So is right, you're right to be Irish. Dvar of Kayam. Al Misha Ain Royally Yarshay, Rain Royally Yarshay Ain Dvar of Kayam. So right away the Gemara questions. Time at the Achamakam Bas. Daf, can you tell me my brother instead of his daughter? Or Bas Makam Ben? Ben Abana Bas Ben Abanas. I know a son with all the sons or a daughter with all the daughters. Dvar of Kayam. So that is Shitas Tanakam, and that's what he told me. Shitas Tanakam, that's basically Rabbi Yochanan ben Breika. Ema Seifa. Rabbi Yochanan ben Breika, Mama Misha Rali Yarshid Dvar Kayamim, which is Hainu Tanakama. So how do you understand the Mishnah? What is the difference between Shitas Tanakama and Shitas Rabbi Yochanan ben Breika? The Chitem, you're going to tell me, Rabbi Yochanan ben Breika, Afilu Acher Makam Bas. Rabbi Yochanan ben Breika would hold even a scenario of Acher, a brother instead of a daughter, Bas Makam Ben Kamar. That can be. Vatanya, Rabbi Shmuel says, Ben Noish Rabbi Yochanan ben Breika, we're back with the words Rabbi Shmuel. I mean, like Nechluku Abba v'Chachamim, Malachem Makam Bas Bas Makam Ben. Shalai Amaklum. So man Nechluku, what are they really arguing about? Al Ben Ben Abanim, Bas Ben Abanim. Sha'aba Imir Shivachamim, Layirash. So again, we're back to square one. What is the machlekes Tanakama and Rechem Breika? And that the Gemara gives 2 terutzim. Iba Seimim in the Kamar Loy Nechluku. The Hainu Reb Abba, Rabbi Shmuel's the son, is arguing. Michlad the Tanakama Savar. They are arguing machlekes Nechluku Rabbi Yochanan ben Breika even in such a case. Iba Seima, the easy way out to really understand the Mishnah. Iba Seima, Kula der Rabbi Yochanan ben Breika, v'chesur mechsra, v'hachiktani. This is how you read the Mishnah. I'm ish pliny or sheni makam sheish bas. I want my brother to be Yerush in the snare with his daughters. Or beat der sheni makam sheish ben. Lo yamaklum. Ha bas bein abanas, a daughter with all the other daughters, or bein abanim im amar yirash kana chasav dvar kayamim. Why is this? Shab Yochanan Aimer Yochanan says im amar amish rali yarshay dvar kayamim. So that's the easy way out. That comes out that the whole Mishnah sheet is Rabbi Yochanan ben Breika, and then we have really another sheet on Kuf Chavav and Beis that we saw earlier. Amar Rav Yehuda Shmuel halach is like Rabbi Yochanan ben Breika that bein abanim ubas bein abanis is naman. B'china Rava halach is Rabbi Yochanan ben Breika. Amarava, my time of the Rabbi Yochanan ben Breika. What is the mahalach? What's takam shot that Rabbi Yochanan ben Breika is able to go over and say, I want Ruvain to be Yerush everything and not Shmuel. L'chayr the Torah tells us all banim should get Yerusha. Amakra, and that Rav Zakh Rabbi Yochanan ben Breika says in the pasuk, V'haya b'yoyim hen chiloi es banav. Now we already saw this in the Mishnah Kufches. It says yesh neichilin v'yesh menchilin. Menchilin is a lashon that you have a power to bequeath to give somebody else Yerusha. Now the Torah Zakh Rashbam should have easily just said, the day that the sons are Yerush. Why does it put it with the father's side? Since it says Henchiloi to tell us a Torah Nosna Rishos La'av Lahanchel L'chol Mishiyertz. Amalei Abai says, Mela Yuchal Levacher Naker. We already learned this, Mela Yuchal Levacher. That says that you can't give the Bechar to somebody else. However, the Shar Nechasim you could give. After the Bechar you can give. On that, the more answers, that it says, one kuflamed amad beis. Why does it say in lo yuchal levaker? And that he says the fish in a sense it says v'haya b'yom chilas banam, and you would have said what sheyachol v'aloi dinu uma pasha, just like we know the chelik of the pasha sheyup kayach. Yes, a yafa kayach. What's his yafa kayach? The pasha we all know. What's the chelik between a bechar and a pasha? Is that a pasha is neitel even right? So therefore, Bechar Shiur Kaicha ain't a night to Barai Kemuchsak. Like Kashakin, they should be able to give up the Bechaira. And that's Zak the Pasuk. Tamalai Melayuchal Avakar. So Zak the Mara Veloy Vyam Melayuchal Avakar. Why do I need the second Pasuk? Matamalai Vahayim Yamechilas Manav. And that the more answer Shiyachal Valai Dinu. You start making cheshbainis. Uma Valai Dinu. Uma Bechar Shahura Kayach. The Bechar has a shvach. Shein and Night Break Muxuk Amatar La Yuchal Avakar. So you also say Kalshakin a Pashat. Pashat Shiyafa Kach Shanat Break Muxuk like Kalshakin. Tamalaimar Vahaya B'Yayim and Chila is Banav Atar Nasr Shus La'av La'achil Chomi Shirtz. So it comes out there are two psukim and we needed both psukim. Why? Because La Yuchal Avakar tells me cannot give over the Bechaira. Why would I think otherwise? Because I can give over the Pashat. Why can I give over the Pashat? L'chayr I see I can't give over the Bechayra. On that, since we have B'yayim and Chila is Banov and La Yuchal Levaker come to tell us both things that you're able to do, that regarding the Bechayra you cannot, regarding a Pashut you could, even though you would have having to think otherwise, since the Pashut has an extra mile of what? Extra mile that he's Naito B'roi K'v'muchsak. Omer Tzeka, Omer Avami, Omer Chanina, Omer Rabbi, Alochis, Karbi Yechon, Omer Breika. Omer Leir Rababa, Hayr Itmar. He's saying that Hayr Itmar. So what's it mean, Hayr Itmar? One says the Allah is like Rabbi Yechon, and one says Hayra. So what's the difference between Hayra? My commitment, Marasav Allah Adifa. Marasavar, the one says halacha is better. When a person says, I saw this halacha, it's much better. Marasavar Maisa Rav. Maisa is better. Now what's in Mitzias, there are milas to halacha and there are milas to Maisa. The milas of a Maisa is that la Maisa, when it comes, we all say, when it comes l'maisa, when a lot of times when someone tries to ask a Rav Shaila, the second he hears it's hypothetical, he doesn't want to give an answer. When it's l'maisa, you're going Zakter Shba, have a medaktik yaser. So that's a mile of maisa. And then there's a mile of halacha, because it's very possible that the reason why the Rav paskin that this maisa is good is very possible. You didn't know the entire story. It's very possible, let's say in our sugya, that he really used the lashon matana somewhere, and you didn't understand that. You didn't realize that. So each one has a mile of either lashon, either by a maisa or a halacha. So that's the shayla. Which one's adif? Do we say halacha is adif or maisa is adif? Tana Rabbana. Until you hear the words what? Halacha lemaisa. Shal v'amala halacha lemaisa. Yelech v'yasa maisa b'vad. You could go do the maisa. However, b'vad shalei dama. So what's the marfek tomorrow? My b'vad shalei dama. V'kol Torah. The whole entire Torah is what? We learn from each other. V'kol Torah demuyim edaminallah. So in that Amar of Ashi, Hachikama, Bavachalei, Dame Betrefus. Betrefus is a very important point that you can't say Davka Betrefus is very possible. Where you could say that there's a wound over there, it could be a trefa, Mashenkin, in a different animal, in a different place, even though it's the same place, you can say it started. The Tanya, Einam Betrefus, Zed Doimelazu. Va'at Tame, why? I'll prove it to you. Sharei Chaytchem Mekanu Mesa, V'chaytchem Mekanu Mechaysa. The Rishbam says exactly where it would be. Amalei Avasi Rav Yechona. Ki Amalon Mar Alacha. Hachi, Navin Maisa, should we do it? Amalei loy savidu. Don't do it ad namin until I tell you halacha lemaisa. Amalei Rav Papa Rav Huna Yeshua. And he tells him as follows: Ki asi piska didina didi. When something comes up that says I paskin X Y Z, and you want to argue, didila kamaychu. You want to say, no, I don't like how you paskin. Loisikru, don't rip it up. Go add a sisil kamei, and I'll come. And manushach. If I have a pshat, why I paskin like that, I'll tell you. I'll be chayzer. I don't have a problem being chayzer. I don't have a problem saying, Rabbi say I made a mistake. However, after I die, don't rip it up. But you can't learn from it. Why? You can't rip it up. Do you have a hustle? Maybe if I was there, I might have said something to you. And don't learn from there. And there's Bam says, for example, by a nida where a person comes with the kesem, don't start saying if. And the person came with a few days later where the dam was already, yavish was already dry. Don't start coming. The dam can't start making cheshbainos. Oh, if the person would have came with this immediately and it would have been lach, I would have paskin kosher. Therefore, I'm paskin kosher. Elamai elo de'ein ledayin of elo masha ein of royes. We're going to continue next week with Kuf Lamed Aleph Amid Aleph.